here to discuss this, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who it's been a busy few days for you, sir. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. It has been a busy few days, and it's kind of shocking that it's come to this. But maybe this is the way the Democrats want it to be.
Yeah. When they discuss arresting and people being arrested, I mean, ultimately, what it says in the Texas state constitution is that when they return to Texas, they can be escorted to the Capitol, where they have to do the business of the people. Correct?
That's correct. It's not as they're trying to portray like they're going to be, taken to prison or jail or put before a court. This is just merely, hey, you have an obligation under the Constitution, which you swore an oath to come in and vote. And they claim that they're trying to protect the vote, but here they are stopping all the other members of the legislature from what? Voting.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how they're trying to protect the vote, and I know that's what they say, and they keep saying that. And I've read the bill, and I've discussed the bill on air, and I've linked to it, and I've cited it, and I've gone through it. No one so far, from the Castros to any of these lawmakers, have ever pointed out, talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, where the Jim Crow part of the bill is. Because maybe it's like it's in secret ink, and you can't see it. I don't know.
I think Biden meant Sheryl Crow, not Jim Crow.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, so I don't know how it could possibly be what they're saying. And as you said, maybe they haven't read the bill, because the provisions of those bills are very sort of, in some ways, innocuous. They're just trying to tighten up some issues that we've had with certain counties recently, particularly in Harris County, where they were doing things outside the law.
Yeah, the 24-hour voting.
Yeah, and like most of these things were already recognized as being unlawful, and they're just making sure that it's understood that these little pranks or these little outside the law efforts by Harris County are being corrected.
One of the things that I was wondering, because they spend a lot of time going against the emergency procedures that were put into place, because when the lockdown happened, we had elections, and we had to do elections a little differently. Every state in the union had to approach it the same way. Certain states like Georgia actually brought it and passed it and made some of those things permanent. They codified like the mail, the drop boxes for ballots, and the 24-hour voting thing, which still I don't understand how that was even why that was even needed during a lockdown. What the things that Texas implemented, those are the things that were ended, except for the early voting. Additional time was added onto that, and then the counties it's just a normalization of when early voting starts and stops, because that was kind of confusing last time around. It was different in every county.
Yeah, and I think one of the things they were trying to do is that different counties started operating differently, largely because what you said, they were using either COVID as an excuse, or they really were trying to deal with COVID. And so counties were operating differently around the state, and they're not supposed to. It's supposed to be a uniform election code. I think the legislature is merely trying to clarify so that the counties understand what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do.
Yeah. And if people don't have a photo ID, which is required, and I have no problem with it, they can use the last four of their social security, last four digits of their social security number, correct?
Right. And also there's a way to, if you sign an affidavit saying that you are unable, under penalty of perjury, to get a photo ID, you can still vote. So that we put that in several years ago. So even if you don't have a photo ID, there is a way to vote. You just have to swear that you can't get a photo ID for some odd reason.
That and I would not even allow that if I were writing the law. I wouldn't even allow that.
No. When we voted on it in 2011, it wasn't in there. What happened was the Fifth Circuit struck down our law. They said, but if you'll put this affidavit in there, it'll be fine. So we were forced by the Fifth Circuit.
Interesting.
To change it. And so that was our choice: either have no voter ID law, or have an affidavit where they swear under penalty of perjury that they can't get a photo ID. So it wasn't chosen by the legislature. The Fifth Circuit panel told us it was a 9-6 vote that struck down our law, but we put this in and we're good. So we decided, you know what? This is a small give. We didn't choose it. We still get to keep voter ID if we put that in there.
Right. We're talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton about the Democrats' exodus, their brave trip to Washington, D.C. I mean, the way that I see it, if they're going to make up stuff about what's in the bill, I mean, I think it's safe to say that they left because they are against expanding early voting then. I mean, that seems fair. If they don't want to vote on it, don't want to take a move on it, they oppose early voting.
You certainly could characterize it that way, because it would be partially true, right? I mean, it's part of what they're avoiding, is voting on a bill that would expand early voting. And of course, they've never said that. The media's never said it. Thank you for saying it, because nobody else is saying it. And it's true.
Yeah. And I just, again, when I look at this, I look at I was comparing if this bill were to go through, I was comparing what this law would be compared to Georgia's. I thought Georgia's, for instance, actually went way too far. There were things in Georgia's expansion that I did not agree with, that's why I thought it was so insane when people were saying that their law was racist. And then now they're attacking the Texas law. To me, this seems, and a lot of other people here in Texas, and not just Texas, but around the country, this is they're using this just as an apparatus to try to get some momentum for the federal bills, the John Lewis Voting for All, whatever act, where it's about federalization of elections. Do you share that thought?
Absolutely. As you know, H.R. 1 is probably the worst anti-American protection bill ever. And it's designed to take all of our protections that prevent fraud from happening and one by one say, no, even though there's a lot of fraud related to this issue, you can't stop mail-in ballots. Even though felons shouldn't be voting in your state, we're going to let them vote. So it just one by one, it takes away every possible protection. So it is true that voting will be more accessible. It's just that it will be incredibly hard to ever stop massive fraud. If people want to do fraud, it's legalized. It is condoned. It is like, you're okay, just cheat as much as you want, because we want elections to be open to everyone, even if they're not supposed to vote.
Wow.
That's where they're going.
Wow. This talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. And I wanted to play, because obviously this is, I have a couple more questions for you on this. One is when do you expect them to be back? Because this is going to pass. I mean, this bill is inevitable. It's going to pass. They're just wasting donor money and wasting time. When do you expect them to kind of make the sad, slow walk back?
That's a good question. I don't know what their ultimate end game here is. It to affect redistricting and to stay away so we can't pass a redistricting plan? Is it that they really didn't understand that the governor was likely to call them back every single day that they're gone and repeat this over and over? We did this in 2003 when I was in the House. Governor Perry, we went all the way to October.
Yep.
Very hard on people like me who have jobs, who can't go work, and it affects our families. But that story is not being told, how legislators who are sacrificing their time, they make $600 a month, they're down here waiting to vote, and they're being told by 51 absconders that they can't do their job and they otherwise can't go make a living, and their life is totally uncertain. No vacations, no time with your family. You just get to sit on the House floor and wait.
Yeah.
How fair is that?
No, not at all. Is there going to be an investigation into who is funding this trip? I know that some of it have been saying that it's donors and they got the private jets. Those aren't cheap.
That would be up to some other people like the Texas State Police. Sometimes they're favorable to doing things like that, and sometimes they don't do it. We'll just have to see if they'll do the job, or whether the DAs. It's largely up to DAs and then state police to do those type of investigations. And we don't always get those investigations. So we'll see if after they report, how all these people report this, because that's going to be a key factor in deciding where the money came from and what happened. Right.
We're talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Last question that I have for you, sir. This is actually just this afternoon, and I know you've been incredibly outspoken and have done a lot in terms of social media, corporate censorship. And so far we've been calling it corporate censorship, which is very different from just saying censorship outright, because you wanted a little, people want a little bit more evidence of conspiracy or collusion with the federal government as to who's getting suspended, whose posts are getting flagged. But a quick soundbite I wanted to play for you. This is the White House press spokesperson, Jen Psaki, who was explaining just this afternoon how they're working with platforms like Facebook to flag posts from citizens, people who share what they say is disinformation. Listen.
With these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. Given, as Dr. Murthy conveyed, this is a big issue of misinformation, specifically on the pandemic. In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. We're working with doctors and medical professionals to connect to connected medical experts with popular who are popular with their audiences with accurate information and boost trusted content. So we're helping get trusted content out there. We also created the COVID community corps to get factual information into the hands of local messengers. And we're also investing.
And I wanted to get your thoughts, talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, on something like this, because now I think now I'm not even going to use corporate censorship. This is censorship. This is the White House admitting that they're working with social media platforms to censor individuals. What are your thoughts on this? And I mean, how can individuals even protect themselves from this kind of overreach?
You know, I never thought that George Orwell's book 1984 would become reality in my lifetime, but it is becoming reality. And the fact that they are so openly admitting it, they're not even hiding it. So they're like, yeah, we are censoring, and guess what? We're the government. We're here to help, and we can do what we want, even though this should be illegal and it is government censorship. There is a First Amendment, and they openly claim that they're doing it. They're not even afraid of saying that. That is a scary time.
Very scary thing indeed. Yeah, I mean, and I figure that it's probably even more widespread than it is here. Goodness. Well, we're going to watch and see when the Texas state Democrats come doing that sad, slow, sorry walk back from Washington, D.C. And what kind of escort? That's what I'm most looking forward to, sir, is what kind of escort's going to be meeting them.
You know what will happen? And this happened in 2003. The Democrats they left the House to avoid redistricting. They came back with a gallery full of people that they had brought in. And they came in like triumphantly, as if they were heroes coming back from some type of, conquest.
Gosh. Well, they did act like they were going to war. I mean, so that, it's fitting that they would try to come back. They act like they're going off to war. There's sacrifices that they make. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, sir, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dana. Have a great day.
You too.